Hello everyone, this is part 18 of What If Naruto Was Neglected and Was Trained by Shisui, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Whoa. What the F happened? All they could see was destruction. Almost half of Konoha had been reduced into ash, leaving a large hole where the Hokage Tower used to be as it spread for miles. Another gust of wind picked up as what looked like half a house flew towards both girls, landing just meters away from them and hitting the ground with a loud bang. Kurenai's hair fluttered from the wind, her hand hiding a gasp as she watched the remaining civilians run for dear life. Luckily the other half of Konoha seemed to be untouched, minus the debris that flew from the explosion. It seemed to be fine. Kurenai. Narumi whispered, not bothering to look into Kurenai's direction as her hand subconsciously reached out and gripped the Junins tightly. Is this Naruto's doing? Kurenai slowly shook her head, not aware of the intimate action as she was lost in her own thoughts. No, Naruto-kun told me what he was up to. But it wasn't this. You're right, this has nothing to do with Naruto-kun. Both girls felt their bodies tense at the unknown voice, turning around to see a tall man standing directly next to Kurenai's bed. He was leaning against a wall with his arms crossed over his chest. Narumi was the first of the two to get over her shock as she took a protective step forward, narrowing her eyes at the stranger as she finally felt the Kyuubi start to heal all her wounds. Who are you, and how do you know Naruto? The tall male eyes the young Namikaze, quickly taking note of the intertwined hands of the two. He raised an eyebrow in curiosity. Interesting. By how much Naruto-kun talked about Kurenai, I didn't think she would be taken already. Especially by his own sister. Narumi, despite the situation, found herself blushing, scowling towards the man. Kurenai on the other hand finally became aware of the hand tightly gripping hers. She quickly removed her hand from Narumi's grip, missing the dagger of pain that went across Narumi's face as she did so. The Junin's ears perked up at the mention of Naruto. She took a step forward, quickly taking note of the black and blue cloak that the man was wearing. Standing her ground next to Narumi as she narrowed her own eyes. Are you part of that Atarashi group Naruto-kun told me about? The man felt his eyebrow go even higher, his eyes glowing with a small amount of shock. Oh my. I didn't think he would tell you about us. That is indeed quite a shock. Running a hand through his light gray hair, a small grin on his face. Atarashi. What's going on here? And you never answered the question on how you know Naruto. Narumi bit towards the Atarashi member, her eyes turning red as she started channeling her chakra. Already prepared for a fight. It pissed Narumi off seeing the man not take up a defensive stance. He just smiled friendly and bowed deeply. My name is Yuno. I guess you can call me a business partner to Naruto-kun, and partially a sensei. A business partner? Kurenai asked, royally confused. Even Narumi sweet dropped at the odd choice of words. Yuno straightened his back up before offering him another small smile. Taking a seat on the bed as he motioned for both girls forward. Both looked hesitant, which wasn't a surprise to him. He ignored the cries of fear that echoed outside the village as she crossed his legs and leaned on his palm, averting his gaze to the top of the Hokage monument that was barely visible from his angle. I have some things to talk to you two about, regarding Naruto-kun. With Naruto, Hiashi, and Danzo. What's wrong, kid? Finally realized that you lost. Hiashi Hyuga said confidently, sneering at the 16-year-old he held hostage. Naruto didn't respond. Instead he allowed himself to be pulled by the Hyuga clan head to wherever it was they were going. Hiashi held onto one of Naruto's arms firmly, not bothering to hold the other since the blonde had his chakra completely sealed. If you want I can overreact again. But that doesn't sound too fun. Naruto responded, attempting to shrug his shoulders as best he could within Hiashi's grasp. Using his free hand he scratched his cheek with a bored expression on his face. Even though the blonde looked like he wasn't paying attention, he had kept the suspiciously quiet Danzo in his sights the whole time. He was walking a good few feet in front of them, leading them through the half-empty forest. Naruto almost wanted to laugh at how things were going. In fact, he had to bite his cheek until blood pooled in his mouth to stop himself from giggling at everything. Hiyashi noticed the look on Naruto's face and scowled darkly. Barging his hand up, he backhanded the boy, making Naruto's head fly back painfully. What's so funny, brat? You'd be lucky if you make it out of here in one piece. Oh, I intend to, Naruto replied, spitting out blood from his mouth onto the grass beneath him with a grin. All the while this was happening, Danzo kept up his brisk pace as they finally made it to their destination. The Hokage had asked him to take Naruto into the most secure holding cell that they had. And there just so happened to be one right under the Hokage monument hidden inside the Shodai Hokage's head. It was a tricky place to find, and even trickier to get into. It required at least 2 or more Junin with special seal markings made by the Shodai Hokage, and Mito Uzumaki. All the clan heads and advisors were given access to this seal since Minato took up in office. There had been a surplus of missing nin appearing in the last 10 years, and Minato thought it would be smart to utilize the holding cell as much as he could. Especially if the missing nins were from Konoha. As soon as they cleared the forest, Naruto whistled in fascination. He always forgot how beautiful the village looked from atop the Hokage monument. Wow, this view is amazing, Naruto simply stated, drawing the attention of Hiyashi as he just yelled at Naruto again. Not noticing Naruto's hand slipped quietly into the pouch on his hip. Danzo said nothing as he jumped onto the Shodai's head. Looking over at Hiyashi, his face was as stoic as ever. Hiyashi-sama, let's get this. Boom. Danzo's words were forcefully interrupted as a large explosion echoed throughout the village. Danzo was forced to stab a kunai into the Shodai statue in order to keep his balance, since the gust of wind that randomly picked up from the village was insanely strong. Hiyashi and Naruto weren't as lucky. They got a taste of the blast head on as dirt mixed with debris washed over them, sending them flying backwards with a yell. The blast lasted for no more than 5 seconds before it finally quieted down and came to a halt. Danzo spat at some dirt that got caught into his mouth as he turned to look where the blast came from. He felt his one visible eye go wide as he looked down at what he assumed before was the upper half of Konohagakure. For the first time in Danzo's life, he was utterly speechless, his eye tracking over the large crater where he knew the Hokage Tower used to sit, along with several hundred buildings all filled with people. How tragic. I will admit I do feel terrible about this. Danzo snapped his head upwards at the sudden voice, looking to his left to see Naruto sitting down on top of the Nadaime Hokage's head. One of his legs was outstretched as his other was curled up to his chest. His arm lying lazily over his knee as he propped himself up with his free arm, looking down at the village with a neutral expression. Danzo schooled his emotions as he got to his feet and looked at the blonde boy with a blank stare. I see. Then you were not lying about your plans, Naruto hummed, nodding his head. It was a white lie. I've never been in a Wagakure before, but I did have a plan. What have you done to Hiyashi? Danzo asked, not out of curiosity, but out of necessity. Without looking away from the destruction beyond him, he thumbed behind him. Danzo followed his finger before it finally landed onto the already dead body of Hiyashi Hyuga. A small red pike pierced his body from the back, extending outwards as the tip held his faintly beating heart. From the look of pure shock on Hiyashi's face from here, Danzo was sure that he had no idea what was going to happen to him. The chakra use? Danzo asked. Naruto tossed a blank piece of paper towards Danzo, letting the wind carry it before it landed itself in front of the older man's feet. A nullifying seal. I had one prepared to use once I got to Konoha, since I expected the Hokage to do something like that, Naruto said, bringing his hand to his chin as he hummed in thought. Well, either him or Natsu. I even asked Natsu about it earlier and he said I didn't need one. You've done preparations, you've been planning for a while. Give or take 5 months. But we told you were in a coma. That doesn't change anything. Not all plans need the leader to be under the spotlight. Danzo found himself chuckling at that. How wiser words have never been spoken before. I would have to agree. We seem to have a similar mentality then. I am nothing like you, Naruto growled out, his hand squeezing into a fist as he finally turned to look at Danzo. Just the sight of the man caused the scar over his eye to heat up in phantom pain as hatred pulsed into his veins. You are the one who took Shisui Nisan away from me. You ordered the elimination of the Uchiha clan just because it was convenient for you. Even more so at how alike we are. Danzo gestured his cane to the village, a slight sad look passing across his eye at seeing the village he cherished more than anything get destroyed. What you are doing is the exact same. You don't who gets in your way, as long as it ends with you standing here before me right now. Did you not just kill hundreds of innocent people to get to where you are now? You did, because it was convenient for you. Danzo snickered, dropping his cane and watching it fall down the large mountain. How incredibly selfish. Naruto huffed, getting to his feet and turning to Danzo. The elder turned to him as well, both silently staring at each other as they let the soft breeze dance across their bodies. Naruto, just from looking at Danzo, couldn't help but start laughing to himself, bringing his hand up to his face and covering his left eye. If Danzo was confused by the sudden shift in attitude of the blonde boy, he didn't show it outwardly. But under his bandages he felt his eye narrow itself, turning into a slight as the back of his legs tensed ever so silently. See, that's where you're wrong, Danzo. Naruto announced, brushing his hair out of his eyes as he raised his hand even higher, revealing his already transformed Sharingan to the world. Once again, Danzo went speechless at the sight, a breath getting trapped in his throat in silent shock, though his face remained passive. My goal wasn't just to get to you. In fact, you're just a side dish until the main course. Danzo narrowed his eye at the blonde, internally scowling as he tore off the bandages around his right eye, his own blazing red eye coming into the light of the early afternoon sun. His voice cold and ruthless, "You're years away from challenging me, boy. Have some respect for your elders," forming a ram seal as chakra erupted from his body. Rage swept through Naruto's body as he looked dead into Danzo's Sharingan, no, Shisui's Sharingan. The anger he felt at this moment was unparalleled to anything he had felt before, and he fully intended to make this old bastard eat his words. Naruto copied Danzo, his own chakra discharging from his body as his Sharingan spun wildly. Just to let you know, Danzo, for most of my fights I've been hiding my abilities, only using them when necessary. But now, Naruto said coldly, his body vanishing in a small cloud appearing right next to Danzo. Mangekyo blazing brightly, Naruto flung out his fist with enough speed that Danzo's Sharingan could barely manage to keep up. Snapping his arm upwards, Danzo absorbed most of the attack, but the force was too strong and he was sent flying back into the forest clearing and clear off the Shodai's head. I intend to use everything I have against you. Danzo clicked his tongue, channeling a good amount of wind chakra into his legs to ease his fall, landing on his feet and sliding backwards, destroying the grass beneath him. The elder wasn't deterred, however, jumping to the side just in time to dodge a thick beam of water that shot itself from Naruto's hand. With a quick shunshin, Naruto appeared right before Danzo once again, a dense blade of water enclosed in his grip, attempting to slash Danzo in his movement. Danzo was easily able to see the attack coming thanks to his dujutsu. Acting quickly, he grabbed the blonde's wrist before the blade could come into contact, and bent his wrist downwards trying to break the appendage. Naruto saw through the obvious plan and bent along the same way, bringing his foot up and sending a devastating kick to Danzo's skull. Letting go of Naruto's wrist, Danzo bent backwards, avoiding the kick by mere inches, and shot his hand out, gripping the blonde's ankle and forming a one-handed seal as the wind started to pick up around him. Wind style, great breakthrough. A torrent of wind shot out from his mouth and blew Naruto backwards. The small wind blades tore into the blonde's body, cutting up his arms and legs in a zigzag pattern. Luckily the wounds weren't deep. Not that it mattered to the blonde. Grinning, Naruto wasted no time, landing on his feet and forming his own hand seal. Shunshining again, emerging from the dust that Danzo's jutsu conjured up, and got directly into the old man's face. Blood style, binding ropes. Dark red ropes of blood shot from his new wounds, snaking around Danzo's torso and binding his legs and arms together tight enough that he couldn't move. Not one to stop a cool combo, he cut the connection to the ropes. Turning them into thick threads, he grabbed a hold of the bundle, pumping as much chakra as he could into his arms, and started to lift the blood-clasped Danzo into the air. With a roar he swung Danzo over his head, smashing the elder into the ground, shaking the earth beneath his feet. A large amount of dust rose from the ground, completely obscuring the boy's vision. Naruto's Sharingan pulsed, ducking suddenly as an arrow of wind shot through the dust and over the blonde's head, cutting off a few strands of his hair. Not even a second later the smoke dissipated, with Danzo seemingly tossing it away. He shot through it with a crazed expression on his face, another wind jutsu at the ready. Seeing the obvious opening, Naruto decided to leap into the air instead, ripping into the wound in his leg and spinning around, kicking off a tree, and he shot his front leg down, flicking his wounded leg that produced a thin blade of blood, swiping at Danzo with a frightening display of speed. With his own Mangekyo ablaze, Danzo was able to intercept the blood weapon with his own Wind One. Bending his back slightly, Danzo was able to get the upper hand as another wind blade formed in his free hand and slammed them together. Naruto's face winced from the sudden amount of force. The pressure was starting to become a bit too much as Naruto felt his foot slide off the tree. Losing his balance, Naruto allowed himself to fall, dropping underneath Danzo's two dense gust weapons, intending to make this a close-range battle as his hand shot forwards, his palm slamming deep into Danzo's chest. Danzo couldn't fight back the wheeze that broke past his lips as the air got knocked clean out of him. His eyes went wide from the pain as his wind blades faded away. Reacting quickly, he brought his knee up, planning on breaking the blonde's jaw. Sadly, he was too slow as Naruto just leaned his head to the side, dodging the hit. Skidding back slightly, it gave Danzo just enough distance to extend his leg and wrap it around Naruto's skull, pinning it behind his thigh and squeezing the young blonde's neck. Jumping into the air, he propelled his free leg forward, slamming the sole of his sandal directly into Naruto's face. A loud cracking sound echoed in the clearing as the top of Danzo's shoe tucked itself into Naruto's mouth. With a loud bellow, Danzo strained his voice, and using the foot in Naruto's mouth, he kicked upwards, shattering the blonde Sharingan Use's front teeth as he flew up into the air. Channeling even more wind chakra into his feet, Danzo felt himself climb higher into the air as he twisted his leg that was gripping Naruto around and slammed him into the group. The second Naruto's body hit the floor, it erupted in a large splash of water, soaking Danzo from head to toe as the real Naruto appeared to his left, perfectly unscathed and with a toothy grin, channeled as much chakra into another blood jutsu as he could that sent Danzo flying back into a tree. Groaning, Danzo peeled himself off the tree, wiping away a small amount of blood from his lip as he stared at the cheekily smiling blonde a few feet away. Danzo didn't want to admit it, but he could feel his body beginning to show its age. While his jutsus and overall strength remained the same, it didn't matter if the body could barely keep up with it. "What's the matter, old man?" Naruto mocked, finding it extremely fun to watch as the old man struggled to even get to his feet. "Can't keep up. TCH. Watch your tongue, kid. I wasn't a nominee for Hokage just for show," Danzo said, disappearing from his spot, fully intending to wipe the smug grin off of Naruto's face. Naruto dodges the first fist sent his way, then the second, and third, and the fourth. His grin never fell as he caught the fifth hit inside his own palm. "To be honest with you, old man, you're more disappointing than I thought you would be." Danzo's eyes went wide with unforeseen rage at the blonde's words. He was getting mocked. Danzo Shimura was getting a fool made out of him. With an ear-piercing scream, Danzo let out all of his anger and frustration at getting toyed with, his Mangekyo spinning faster than any shuriken as he shunshined himself free of Naruto's grip. Naruto blinked in amazement at feeling Danzo vanish from him. It didn't quite ruin his awareness, however, as he felt the air around him grow hot, his face illuminating orange as he jumped away from the large fireball that came his way. The second Naruto's foot touched the ground, another ball of fire entered his field of vision. Scowling, Naruto performed his trusty water shield jutsu just in the nick of time to save himself from being burnt to a crisp. He did, however, wince as the steam from both jutsu burnt his arm slightly. Noticing that the ball of fire was finally distinguished, Naruto finally located Danzo, his Sharingan eye locking on with Danzo's own. Forming small senbons from his blood, Naruto caught them and held them in between his fingers. He straightened his back up, allowing his blood to heal his pre-existing wounds as he stretched, earning a loud yawn that was met with a dark glare from Danzo. My, this is pretty boring," Naruto said, tossing his red senbon in the air as he frowned towards Danzo whilst shrugging his shoulders. "But I guess it would be weird if side dishes tasted better than the main course." Danzo clenched his fists, a crazed look running across his face as he tilted his head upwards, his hair falling into his face until only his red blazing eye was visible. "I should have killed you all those years ago. You're nothing but trash," Danzo retorted back, walking towards the patiently waiting Naruto. A wicked smile tipped at his lips as he locked eyes with the blonde. You seem to be completely unfazed by my Sharingan. You do know that this was your beloved sensei's, don't you? Why would I be afraid of that? You act like any genjutsu will have an effect on me. Naruto scoffed, his eyes going dark as he made sure to intentionally look into the spinning Mangekyo of his opponent. And of course, and soon I'll have it back. Within a blink of an eye, Danzo was gone. Naruto felt his eyes go wide for just a moment, but he managed to catch a faint red blur and close on him from his left, but it was just enough. Spinning on his heel, Naruto lunged towards the blur, flipping the senbons in his hand as he met Danzo head-on. Feeling the soft skin tissue under his hand, Naruto wasted no time and stabbed the senbon into Danzo's cheek. Internally scowling as Danzo managed to move out of the way at the last second to spare his Sharingan-free eye. The disappointment didn't last long, however, as Naruto felt his arms fall limp to his side. His eyes suddenly felt very heavy as they blinked several times, trying their hardest to stay open as he felt an intense pull in the back of his mind. Like something was calling to him deep within his thoughts. It was so alluring, beckoning him even closer as he felt his back start to fall backwards onto the soft grass where his head lay to rest. Eyes squinting, the last thing he saw before he felt his lids close forever was a large smirk on that bastard's Danzo's face, and a dark red eye that laughed at him as the world around him faded into a thick empty black abyss. Kotoa Matsukami. After what felt like just seconds, Naruto opened his eyes again. Only to be met with a pitch-blank landscape that he recognized right away. He was plunged deep into his mindscape out of his own volition, staring into the deep abyss with an annoyed expression. Dropping his head into his hands. Damn, if possible Naruto wanted to avoid coming in here as long as he could. It didn't change any of his plans, in fact, it probably made them much more interesting in all honesty. He wondered what kind of plan Danzo was cooking up for him. Now that they were in his mind, the choices were almost limitless. But no matter what Danzo cooked up, it still wouldn't bump him up any stars. As bleak as ever. Though it's what I expected from a nuisance like you. Naruto turned around to look at Danzo as the elder spoke. Sinister grin already implanted in place as he stood at an imposing distance away, arms crossed over his chest with his Sharingan eye closed shut. A thin layer of blood trickling down his cheek. Naruto didn't take the obvious bait as he shifted his foot in the water under him, silently wondering how deep it was as it covered his ankle. No matter how hard you try, Danzo, you won't ever be my first priority. Naruto sighed out, finding instantaneous joy at the way Danzo's face contorted into an angry scowl, fury practically reflecting off his one open eye as his body tensed. Danzo wasn't one for being looked down upon, and right now, Naruto was doing an excellent job at it. Naruto stared at his reflection in the water, ignoring the look of anger Danzo was throwing at him constantly. His own reflection seemed so different that Naruto barely recognized himself. His hair was starting to fall a bit into his eyes, covering his forehead that his slashed-out Konoha headband resided on. His Sharingan eye stayed in its Mangekyo form, spinning ever so slowly as his vision tilted to his right eye in his reflection. Staring into the familiar gold that was just waiting to return. Hearing laughter echo in the abyss, Naruto lifted his head up from the water, turning his one blue iris to Danzo once again, this time with indifference. You fool, do you not understand what is about to happen to you? Danzo screeched loudly, and Naruto was unprepared for the large gust of wind that appeared from the elder, seemingly out of nowhere. Naruto was forced to raise his hands to block his eyes from the heavy wind, squinting ever so softly as he felt himself start to get pushed back into the water. Water splashing up like waves in a feeble attempt to douse the blonde boy in its content as it soaked through his pants. Tell me, boy, Danzo said, speaking the word boy with an incredible amount of disdain that you could practically see poison leaking out of his body. Do you know about the genjutsu, Kotoa Matsukami? Naruto nodded, still fighting the heavy gust as his hair flapped next to his ear, making it almost impossible to hear what the old bastard was saying. It belonged to that bevolved sensei of yours, well, before I stole it. Danzo's voice was oozing with venom as he clapped his hands together, killing the heavy wind, allowing Naruto to stand without issue. But the second Danzo's hands made contact, the black abyss was washed away, like someone had taken an eraser to it and wiped it clean. Surrounding both shinobi in a blank field of plain white. Naruto looked away subtly, making sure to keep Danzo in his sights as he did so. Then right before Naruto's eyes he looked directly behind Danzo, seeing old memories of him when he was a child, then to when he graduated. Switching to his abandonment of Konoha, and then finally ending onto the very day that sparked the creation of his master plan. Naruto for the first time in his life felt himself go pale, feeling his heart thump against his chest as his eyes snapped to Danzo's, just in time to see the elder's own eyes light up in understanding, before finally settling on deep glee. I see now what this so-called plan of yours is. It is, he paused, his malevolent grin virtually bright with excitement as he watched the blood drain from Naruto's face, rather interesting. Naruto tried to recollect his thoughts as fast as he could, not wanting Danzo to get the upper hand as he formed a singular hand seal forming a blood blade in his hand. Naruto thought frantically as he looked down at his empty palm, not believing his eyes as he caught a glimpse of his reflection again, noticing that his Sharingan eye had been replaced with his normal blue. Danzo's cackling broke Naruto out of his stupor, staring at the elder with complete dismay. Kotoa Matsukami, the most powerful genjutsu in the entire shinobi world. It has the power to control others' minds and alter your memories, and your life, he said wickedly, as he started to walk towards the frightened blonde. As of right now, you forgot how to even mold chakra. Danzo at this point was no longer trying to hide his immense glee as Naruto took a step back in fear. The memories once again appeared behind the Konoha elder again, but this time they were different. Young Naruto was curled up in a ball in a rundown apartment complex, his face buried in his legs as he wailed loudly to himself, going unheard at the happy Namikas walked calmly away from him. All laughing together, hands intertwined as Naruto was forced to watch them leave his side. Whenever he tried to reach out to grab at him, it would stop. Like an outside force would grab his wrist to stop it from moving forward. At this Naruto would cry again, his eyes bloodshot as he was sobbing reached new heights. What are you doing? Naruto yelled, finding it impossible to tear his eyes away from the movie-like screen that was playing these false memories of his. Then the scene washed away, making Naruto's eyes go wider and wider until they felt like they were going to pop out of his skull. Naruto knelt down, his knee plunging itself into the thick snow beneath him. His hand reached out and picked up the white substance, looking at it with a small amount of interest as he let the soft snow crumble in his hands. All of this could have been avoided if you were just a better big sister, Narumi. Naruto said sadly, swirling the snow around his knuckles as he turned his attention to the broken state of Narumi's body as it lay crippled onto the floor. Her mouth was completely swollen, left eye permanently closed as her nose was bent into the other direction, broken beyond repair. Blood leaked down her swollen lip and dripped off her chin. She tried to usher out a response but only coughing came out of her. Each cough sent a tremor of pain through her body making her want to scream in absolute anguish. Naruto watched the scene play out in front of him with nothing short of indifference, leaning his chin on his knee as he balled his hand into a fist, punching his sister in the cheek a few more times, just cause he could. It's strange to see you so weak. It's so pathetic, he muttered, adding more force behind his punches. Is this what Toussaint and Ka-san saw in you? They must being stupid. He said giggling to himself, moving his fist he whacked her on the head, wondering how cold she was since she was submerged a few inches deep into the snow. He brought his other hand forward, dropping the snow he broke apart into her face, finding amusement in the way she wheezed in pain at the unforeseen feeling. I wonder if you're thinking to yourself right now. Oh, I'm so sorry Naruto-sama. Please forgive me and my family for our sins. We didn't mean to treat you so badly. Wah wah wah. Naruto mocked and cried, adding fake tears to his performance as he collapsed onto Narumi's stomach. Making sure to smack his head down forcefully, just strong enough to make sure she had to exhale sharply at the feeling. Yeah, well, don't think stupid shit like that, he said, his face morphing back into its original bored tone as he crossed his leg over the other, bouncing his foot back and forth as he picked up another chunk of snow. He smashed his head back down onto her as he felt her try to squirm away. The last thing we people like to hear and see after abandonment is pity. And we both know that it never would come from the heart. The snow started to take shape into a long thin light blade as he added his chakra into it. Shrugging his shoulders he flipped the blade in his hand into a reverse grip, slamming down and piercing his sister through the throat. Tilting his head upwards to see if the life already faded from her eyes. Still seeing a twinge of life resides in those matching blue eyes, he forced the blade deeper inside her flesh, nodding in satisfaction as her eyes turned dull and empty. Well, it doesn't matter anymore anyway. Stop this, please. Naruto screamed pitifully, losing his footing and slipping on the water and falling on his butt. Shoving his hands in the water, he tried to crawl away from memories he felt getting implanted into his brain, and the ever-growing closer form of Danzo. Tears started to fall down his cheeks as he whimpered as he felt the memories he made start to fade away, implanted with new ones without his consent. Naruto cried as he plunged the blade deeper into the body of his little sister. Keese coughed up blood, the droplets landing on the blonde's face as he tried to fight back the urge to sob at seeing life fade from her eyes. "En-ni-san," she whispered, her throat dry as she reached a tiny hand out and gripped his cheek. Her own tears falling in rapid succession, and in a feeble attempt, tried to wrap her arms around Naruto. In her attempts she moved her body towards him, subconsciously sending the sword deeper into her gut as her hands managed to get around Naruto's head. His head immediately fell into the crook of her neck as a violent sob ripped itself free from his throat. Keese coughed up some more blood as she rested her head on his shoulder, her eyes falling limp and closing, never to open again. "Why-ni-san. Please stop, I'm begging you." Naruto cried, his hand coming up and covering his eyes as he sobbed, his eyes closed shut as he felt the memory plunge itself into him. Danzo's laugh was full of sin as he kicked Naruto across the face, making Naruto's head smash into the water. Danzo got onto his knee as he closed in on Naruto's ear. One of his hands reached and grabbed Naruto by his long blonde locks and raised his head up slightly so he wouldn't drown. "And don't worry, I saved the best for last." Naruto stood in place, like he was a statue he couldn't move, forced to stay planted where he was built for all of eternity. But even though his body seemed frozen, his eyes were anything but still. They danced, they jumped, and they even ran around the body of Kurenai Yuhi, who stood just a few feet away from him. She looked as beautiful as the day he met her, back when he was still a child. His eyes were glued to her body and refused to look at anything else besides her, but one thing that they couldn't stop looking at in particular was the deep-rooted disgust that shined in her breathtaking ruby eyes. A sinister grin did its own dance on her lips, laughing at the predicament she found herself in as she pointed at Naruto. "You love me." She blanched, her face contorting into pure repulsion as she shuddered. "How disgusting. I mean, have you ever seen yourself?" Naruto didn't know if his body knew how to walk anymore, or do anything else besides stare in bewilderment and pain at the woman he cherished. "I mean, you're still a young kid, and you expect a woman of my status to fall for such a loser like you." She felt sick to her stomach at the mere thought of this boy having any sort of feeling about her. "You were left behind by your family, you're nothing more than just a young piece of trash and a scapegoat for other people's anger." This time she broke out into dark laughter. "Kurenai-chan. Please, don't ever call me that." She screamed at the blonde, her stomach churning as she revolted in place like he had attempted to strike her. To her it was like he did actually hit her, loathing the idea of that boy getting any closer to her than he already was. "You're better off just leaving me alone. Forever. In fact, I better not see you anywhere near me." Kurenai scowled, spitting in Naruto's face from an incredible distance as she vanished behind her apartment door. Away from him. For good. Naruto finally got his body to move, but in a bad way. His knees buckled from the intense pressure and he fell to the floor, his hands doing their best to keep him stable as he sobbed. Naruto felt like a dagger was thrusted into his heart, cutting up each individual artery before snapping his heart clean in two. Kurenai, he whimpered, his tone pathetic as he slammed his head onto the ground, not caring for the blood that now fell down his face as he cried. Cried after losing the one person he cherished more than anything. Danzo's eyes glinted as he raised Naruto's head further up, looking into Naruto's now void eyes as he stared blankly at the ground. Now Danzo was certain that Naruto had seen him as his main threat, that no one could beat him now. With a deep breath Danzo breathed out, igniting the air around him, slightly scorching the blonde's tan skin. If Naruto felt the pain, he didn't react to it. Instead, he kept his gaze onto the ground, staring into his lifeless reflection with no emotion or thought. "From now on, you will obey my every command," Danzo said, pulling the blonde's hair back even further, straining the blonde locks for everything they had. After realizing that Naruto refused to look up, Danzo looked into the boy's reflection, making sure to keep his Sharingan eye locked onto his blue ones. His heart swelling with anticipation as he watched the shoulders of the boy start to tremble. You will be my personal weapon. Now be a good dog and... Danzo couldn't get the rest of his sentence out as the trembling from Naruto's body moved from his shoulders to the rest of his body. He was bouncing, and what sounded like a sob escaped his throat after a few seconds. Then another one came, then another. And soon Naruto broke out into full-blown laughter as he convulsed in Danzo's grip. The elder watched in apparent anger as he backhanded the blonde, only to open his eyes wide in shock when Naruto's hand flew up to catch his wrist. Oh, you really are a ring idiot. You really think some stupid genjutsu would work on me? Naruto, voice was confident as he looked back up to Danzo, his mangekyou spinning wide, putting Danzo in a much deeper state of shock. But how you shouldn't be able to use. Please, you think I came this far without having any precautions? Naruto mocked, snapping his fingers as the water beneath him started to spin. Danzo was too slow to notice, and before he even registered what happened, the current swept him away. Losing his grip on the blonde's hair as he yelped in surprise, falling back into the waves as they flew over him. Danzo's head tried to stay afloat as it bopped up and down, gasping for breath whenever he managed to escape the cascading water, only to repeat the process for several more seconds. He was overwhelmed, there was nowhere to go, and he couldn't just shunshin out of this situation. Why can't I stop this jutsu? Danzo yelled between bated breaths, almost drowning several times as he formed a ram seal, trying and failing to release Koto Matsukami and escape this hellish nightmare. He couldn't even fathom that sick turn of events that led him to being swept away so pathetically. He pushed Naruto into a corner, he was the one who broke his mind. So how was Naruto able to flip the switch so easily? Oh, well, this is my Mindscape, you know. Naruto said, crossing his arms over his chest as he stopped the jutsu. Allowing Danzo to breathe again as he fell to the ground as the whirlpool disintegrated, the water evaporating into nothingness as the elder tried to catch his breath. Danzo raised his head to glare at the blonde, and if looks could kill, Naruto would be nothing but a pile of ash right now. You ing brat. I'll kill you. Naruto teased, wagging his finger in front of him like he was toying with a child. That's no way to speak to the person in charge of your fate right now. Fate? What on earth are you talking about? And why didn't my jutsu work? Koto Matsukami is indestructible, it's limitless, so how? Sure, Koto Matsukami is indeed the world's strongest genjutsu, but at the end of the day, it's still only a genjutsu. Naruto's words were why, the blonde had never felt so powerful before. For the first time in his life, people were looking at him like he wanted. Sure, he has keys and Kurenai to a certain extent, but he always wanted those who ignored him to see what he was truly capable of. But for Danzo's case, he wanted to show the elder that his decision to kill the Uchiha, that his decision to slay Shisui, was the biggest mistake he could have ever made. He was glad that Sasori and Yuno had told him about Koto Matsukami all those months ago. Well, more Yuno than Sasori. Yuno seemed to know much more about Shisui since he was there when he died. But it gave Naruto just enough time to think of a way to counter the genjutsu. And not surprisingly, it wasn't that hard to think of a solution. Naruto took in a deep breath, shutting his eyes in the process as he snapped his fingers again. This time water shot up from the ground, turning into bright blue chains as they wrapped themselves around the unprepared Danzo. The elder tried to struggle but found that he couldn't mold his chakra anymore. What? You ask why it didn't work? Let me tell you. Or, Naruto grinned, basking in the atmosphere of power that he felt swirl around him. This was his power, he made all of this possible. It was all coming together in the grandest display that he had hoped for, what he and Yuno had talked about was finally happening. The dreams were finally being realized. I can show you. Turtle-chan, you can come out now. Suddenly the ground started to shake around the two shinobi, the water surrounding Danzo started to fly upwards as Naruto stayed with his arms wide, he screamed out happily, snapping his eyes open and looking at Danzo with pure joy. The elder's face drained itself from its blood as he went as white as a ghost. Both of Naruto's eyes stunned him into shock, his body stopped moving against the water chains against him as both red and gold eyes of Naruto stared into him menacingly. For the first time in a long time, Danzo felt a small tinge of fear spark his heart. A loud roar echoed in the black abyss. Tremors started to shake the floor as it came closer and closer to Danzo. The elder was forced to turn his head to look behind him as the stomping grew louder. He felt his heart speed up, his body grow cold. The air around him grew heavy and it was getting harder to breathe with each passing moment. His lungs felt like they were collapsing, failing to produce any more oxygen in his body as his skin went paler than any ghost. It was impossible to not feel a huge amount of fear as the rumbling grew closer. A scream trapped itself in his throat and refused to come out, hiding itself away from being seen as he started to tremble. His eyes went wide as a large golden eye manifested itself from the pitch-black abyss, revealing a large crab and turtle-like body that rolled over the black fog, showing its mighty size that towered over the kneeling elder. "Wah!" Danzo screamed as the beast came down onto him. Its large mouth opening wide, its jaw looking like it unhinged itself as he hit down on Danzo. Teeth clashing against teeth echoed as the beast swallowed Danzo whole. Not bothering to chew as Danzo's screams were muffled as he reached out, trying to grab onto anything so he wouldn't fall into the monster's stomach. Then, everything went dark. Danzo continued to scream as he felt his eyes go wide with terror. Both of his reached upwards again as he attempted to grab anything that he saw. Feeling something under his grip, he grasped tightly, his fingernails digging into something hard. Starting to feel his nails break as they slid across the material. It took him a few moments to figure out exactly what he was grabbing. His vision started to clear up. No longer did he see the inside of a demon's gut, he was staring up high into the bright blue skies of Konoha. His heartbeat finally started to calm down as he looked at the tree that he was holding tight. His nails peeling away at the bark, leaving small traces of his blood stained on the large oak. Finally awake, huh? We gave you quite a scare. Danzo's head snapped to the left to see Naruto leaned next to his ear. Hand gripped onto his neck, Danzo couldn't react fast enough as he got pushed into the tree. Gasping, trying to catch his breath as he stared deep into Naruto's golden red eyes. Naruto grinned, applying more pressure to the man's throat. I will say that your plan was outstanding. Koto Amatsukami truly is a devastating jutsu. Danzo tried to squirm away but found it impossible to do so. He tried to perform a shunshin but he could no longer feel the chakra flowing through his coils. He felt empty, like a husk or a man as he tried to savor as much air into his lungs as he could. Naruto, noticing the man's questioning look, decided to answer the man's unspoken words. Oh, you asking about your chakra? I had my three-tailed friend inject you with a portion of his chakra when he swallowed you. Not only did it completely neutralize your chakra system, but shut down your ability to even mold a single jutsu. But how? I saw your memories. I didn't see a Bayu. Danzo gasped again as Naruto applied more pressure to his neck, feeling the bark behind him starting to break as a few sharper pieces piled into his skin. His arms felt numb, his legs weren't even working and he was being held up by Naruto's grip. Of course you couldn't. I had an accomplice place a seal inside of me to block out certain memories of mine. But Natsu-sama F found all the S-seals on you. Naruto shook his head, behind his free hand up, pointed it to his ear with a smirk. No, he didn't. This seal is inside me. It carved deep into my ear, hidden a way that not even a seal master could see or sense it. Naruto moved his hand forward, moving it away from his ear as he lunged it towards Danzo. And now I have you right where I want you. You put up a good fight, but it wasn't enough, he said happily, the tips of his fingers hovering above Danzo's closed Sharingan eye. Danzo felt the rest of the air he had in his lungs start to dissipate as he was forced to watch in horror as Naruto's hand came closer to him. The shining sun did nothing for him except accentuate the demonic golden eye that stared deeply into him, provoking Danzo to try and fight back, even though Naruto knew there was nothing he could do. Danzo tried to let out a scream of pain at the sensation he was forced to feel. The scream was caught in his throat and Naruto squeezed it away. A loud squelching sound echoed through the forest, dancing across the slightly swaying trees as blood started to fall from Danzo's now empty eye socket. Why you fooing bastard? Danzo attempted to growl, gathering as much strength as he could and punched the blonde with a pathetic display of force. Naruto took the hit, not even flinching as he dropped Danzo back onto the ground. The second Danzo hit the ground he was noting for air, hand coming up and running his pulsing neck as he glared at the blonde. What you're doing will never work. You'll lose yourself, you'll lose the reasoning on why you're doing this. Naruto hummed in thought, tapping his foot on the ground as he looked at the Sharingan eye he just pulled out of Danzo. Finally, he took back the one thing that was holding Shisui back. Now Shisui would be able to rest in peace knowing that the person who ruined both of their lives would soon be dead, and they would be free. Maybe I will, but it doesn't change anything. Naruto formed a familiar seal with his free hand. Danzo felt his cheek start to pulsate, fear sparked throughout his body again as the sensation sent tremors that pounded itself into his skin. In a desperate attempt to fight back, Danzo grabbed a kunai from his pouch while lunging at Naruto. His moves were sluggish and uneven as he grew closer. His legs didn't seem to be working right as he tripped and fell to the ground, head slamming against the grass. Naruto just watched amused at the pure desperation of the elder. It was pathetic. But even you cannot deny that what I'm doing will in fact make this world a safer place. Blood style, iron dance. Danzo couldn't even get out one last roar of panic as the blood that leaked down his face started to shift, moving across his face like veins before covering his whole skull, muffling his cries as Naruto snapped his fingers again. With a loud pop, the blood punctured Danzo through every pore on his face. Like tiny needles, they all invaded themselves into his tissue, crushing his skull along with his brain as the body of Danzo Shimura fell to the ground, completely lifeless. Naruto stood still as he looked passively at the dead body of Danzo. The one person who he wished would finally perish from the world, actually lay dead in front of him. A deep chuckling reverberated through his head, a sensation he hadn't heard in quite some time. Your plan is going extremely well. Almost frighteningly so. Naruto laughed at the deep voice in his head, spinning on his heel as he walked towards the edge of the Hokage monument, where he and Danzo fought. Jumping a bit, he landed atop the Yondaime Hokage's head. He looked down at the almost completely destroyed village. He could see some flashes of jutsu being used in the distance, both from the far left and the right. No doubt his father was already undergoing a battle to save the village from more ruin. Yes, it is, Naruto responded, grinning as he started to channel chakra, but this time it wasn't his chakra. Isabu, both of our dreams are almost here. He felt the calming aura wash over him as he channeled a small amount of the Sanbi's chakra to his skull. Raising his free hand, he forcefully tore out his left eyeball, the eye that Shisui had given him all those years ago. He didn't even flinch from the pain as the soothing water jutsu from Isabu helped minimize anything that resembled pain. I'm glad Yuno and Sasori told me how to obtain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It made killing Danzo much more worth it. Naruto then pushed the eye he stole from Danzo into his eye socket. This time he did flinch a bit as blood started to pool under him. Hitching his breath, he finally let the eye sit in his socket, channeling his blood chakra into his eye, fixing up the tissue damage, and not even 5 minutes later, his eye was as good as new. He opened his eye slowly. No longer did his Sharingan look like a windmill shuriken. No, now what lied in the center was a perfect symmetrical spiral, spinning all the way down until it formed with the center of his pupil. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto wanted to grin at the sensation, his hand pulling down his cheek slightly, grazing it over his scar as he felt the power flow through him. I did it, Shisui-Nisan. I avenged you, your power will live and die with me. And only me, he said happily. Looking down, he stared at his palm. This time he started to laugh, his laughs blazing through the wind, and he was sure the rest of Konoha could hear. Isabu, why do you think no one was ever clever enough to realize something that was so obvious about the Sharingan? Ha. Who knows? Isabu chuckled, swinging his 3 tails freely as he laid down in his seal that was no longer hidden behind bars. Naruto looked at the eye he tore out of him, the original Sharingan that Shisui had given to him, and chuckled. What idiots they all were. He said as he tore out his right eye this time, crushing his beautiful sapphire blue eye into nothingness as he put the Sharingan into his right socket, ignoring the pain as he fixed the wound with his blood. Then, he opened his right eye. Naruto grinned as he blinked several times to get accustomed to his new vision. His left eye was his new eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. In his right, was his regular Mangekyo, but it was now a bright gold than its usual red. Having been influenced by Isabu's chakra the second he implanted it into himself. Naruto didn't look back as he vanished from the Hokage monument, disappearing into the wind and taking off to complete his final mission. He got what he came here to do with Danzo. Ending the man's life and taking the Sharingan back was the stepping stone for something much greater. It was time for the real mission to begin. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.